an academic or you're a regular guy. We have to be fearless.
FrontlineTV.com.
Dear brothers and sisters, let us go into the breach.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, as always, joined by Joe Resinello. And once more, dear brothers and sisters, let us go into the breach on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Remember, the chat room is always open. That is crusadechannel.com/chat. And that is the only social media out there worth actually socializing in. We also would encourage you all that if you don't know about the Crusade channel, you should go on crusadechannel.com. Mike Church and Rick Barrett and the whole lineup there. I always say it's not a radio station, it's a cause, okay? They're fighting the fight. We're fighting the fight. Mike Church is gracious enough to have Joe and I on for what is it, Joe, an hour a week? Hey, listen, it's better to be on the Crusade channel for an hour a week than not be, okay? We're part of a family there. We're in the breach. We're fighting the culture war. We're fighting the spiritual battle. So we encourage you to go to crusadechannel.com, kick the tires a little bit, listen for free, and we are convinced that you're going to want to become a member. Speaking of members, Joe and I would encourage you also, if you want to support us at our show, we have thefrontlinetv.com, thefrontlinetv.com. So we would encourage you to go there for all of our content. Again, we're not in competition. We're all on the same page. We're all on the same team. And also Veritas Catholic Radio Network. Joe and I have our interview shows twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays at noon Eastern time. But also with VeritasCatholicNetwork.com, you could download their mobile app so that you could have access to all the station's content. And you, of course, can get, Joe, how many interviews have we done now? I think it's 60.
60.
Yeah, we got 60 interviews.
In a year. Not bad.
So not bad for a couple of jamokes from from New Jersey. We're going to talk about, Joe Resinello, the pagan culture that we've become tonight. Really, that's the larger conversation. It manifests itself in what used to be, Joe, something that I'm a big fan of. Okay, the Super Bowl. Love the Super Bowl. And God knows the Jets haven't been there since what? Since we were kids. Okay,
69.
69. So it's not because the Jets are in the Super Bowl, but as a sporting event, as part of Americana. Okay, I've always valued the Super Bowl, but the Super Bowl progressively over the years has just gotten I don't even know what to call it and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. But I do want to give a shout out, Joe Resinello. Over the weekend, I was very privileged. Those of you out there know I moved to Scottsdale, Arizona. I just want to highlight that we mentioned last week that there was going to be a prayer rally in front of the Saguaro Hotel where the Satanists were holding their first ever convention, okay? Joe, I'm going to tell you something. It was one of the most powerful things I've ever been involved with. Now, unfortunately, in my own circumstance, I was only able to go on Friday. Yet I did. And I'm not going to lie. It wasn't easy, Joe. It was hot. We were on our feet the whole time. We did a Joshua procession around the hotel. Then we found a space where the police said we could stop and pray there. And it was not easy. I would call it penance. And I don't think I would be off in calling it penance. And Jesse Romero, God bless him. Okay. He's been on with Mike Church this past week. Eric Sammons. We're going to talk about Eric Sammons tonight in his article about the Super Bowl. He was on with Michael Hitchborn. Michael Hitchborn was there. A great Father David Nix was there. Okay. A great group of Catholics. Joe, at the end of it, by 3 o'clock, there had to have been 300 people there. And it was a beautiful, powerful thing. Faithful people praying, Joe, not in a judgmental way towards the people in the hotel with their Satanist convention. We were praying for them. And I think it's an important distinction to make, okay? And I just want to give a shout out to all of you out there at the Crusade channel and everybody who hears us on social media, because we asked you for your prayers and we got them. There's no question in our hearts and in our minds and our souls that we got your prayers, that God listened to our prayers, and whatever God does with those prayers, God will do. But I wanted to say it was a very, very successful weekend and bearing public witness against those who would embrace evil, Joe. I mean, it's really what it comes down to. If you say that you want to worship Satan, okay, and consecrate an entire town in the southwest of the United States to that evil one, all right, then you've embraced evil, and you are in some serious need of prayers. Joe, the prayer warriors showed up. The prayer warriors delivered. I love your comments on that.
Well, it's good. To be honest, I think Jesse. I listened to Jesse. I listened to him on Virgin Most Powerful. I also listened to his interview with Mike Church. He met with Bishop Olmsted, and I think it was the intention of the rally was spot on. It was prayerful. Shouting does nothing. I'll be honest with you. It really does. It does nothing. They just tune you out. The battle belongs to God, and you pray. That's it. It's like going to an abortion clinic. You don't shout back. You pray. We do our first Saturday rosary rally. What do in the public square? We pray. That's it. Prayer and fasting. Too many. I'll be truthful with you. Again, I look at the social media stuff. I don't contribute much to it outside of putting the gospel up and outside of putting our interviews up, but I don't get involved. But I do look at it. I think people are going about it wrong. I'm going to be completely truthful with you. All this banter does nothing. Does nothing. You're wasting your time. I sometimes wonder, to be completely honest with you, do these people have lives? In all truthfulness, Joe, how much time do you possibly have? I barely have enough time to go to the bathroom. Never mind do some of the things that I do, but coupled with the fact it's not doing anything.
Right.
Pray. And here's another thing. If you're frustrated, who isn't? Fast. Vent your frustrations through your fast. And if you're really frustrated, make it a really rigorous fast.
Right.
And you will, I'll be honest with you, you'll do something. But outside of just screaming and all the other stuff, I'm going to be honest with you, Joe, it accomplishes zero.
Joe, remember the larger point in what you're saying, and then we'll segue into the pagan idolatry, which has become the Super Bowl, okay? Is that when you fight, let's say you're in front of an abortion clinic and you're being mocked by some of these people, and I've told you I've witnessed it myself. I've had it done to me. Doesn't make me a martyr, just saying this has been my experience, okay? Punching them in the face does nothing. Arguing with them does nothing. Yelling at them and calling them names does nothing. Even if you're in that situation, making a pro-life abortion argument with these people does nothing. I made a point. Jesse honored me by asking me to say a few words at the rally. Okay, one of the people that said a few things. And I made the point to the folks that were there. I said, listen, Joe and I on our show, we talk about politics, but ultimately this is not a political battle. We talk about the culture, but ultimately it is not a cultural battle. It is those things, okay? But ultimately this is a spiritual battle. And to your point, Joe Rossinello, what I imparted, I think it's true, is what you just said. I said, what our enemies fear most, particularly the evil one, is what we did here today. Peaceful, prayerful witness in the public square. That is what the evil one fears more than anything. Joe, if you had 50 major cities in the United States praying the way we did all weekend long, as Father Karapi would say, the devil doesn't stand a chance.
That's true. But also, I'll be honest with you. I mean, the greatest protest is to live a holy life. I mean, that's why you pray. We pray to get fruit from the prayer. Remember, we're not just saying prayers just to say them. The prayers have to basically become efficacious. Obviously, you're praying to God and for his intercession involving this satanic group, but also we're praying to basically change our own hearts. I mean, that's why you pray. And to be the greatest protest is to live a Catholic and Christian life. It's not, that's the greatest protest. That's swimming upstream. And if you really want to change the culture, it starts with you, it starts with your family, and then the circle just gets wider and wider and wider. You can't control other people.
Right.
And you never will be able to. I can control me. And I got to work. And that's a 24/7 job, by the way. And that's what I got to work on. And I'll be honest with you, Joe, I'll be truthful with you. Our greatest enemy is ourselves.
Yes.
I was listening to Raymond Arroyo. He had on, he was called like his synodal conversation about issues within the church. He was very good, actually. And they had a good priest on, and he was just like, the enemy has been identified, and it's us. And this guy is spot on. He's spot on.
No, you're exactly right, and that's why we have to, as you said, if you want to take care of the politics and take care of the culture, we have to strive, because none of us are perfect. That goes for Jesse Romero, Father Nix, and everybody else that was there. The difference is we acknowledge our imperfections, and as you said, Joe, I'm not going to lie. I prayed many of my prayers that when I was there the other day, they were selfish. And I mean, by that, I mean, it's a good selfishness. I ask God to change me. And by the way, and we'll put a finer point and we'll move on. Father Lewis, who encouraged us to do this show, when I stayed with them for a while before I got married with the Franciscan friars, they were talking. I was having dinner with them, and the friars were talking about going in front of the abortion clinic. And I looked at Father Lewis, and Father Lewis said, you should come with us. And I had never done anything like that in my life. And I said, but Father, after listening to everything you say, I don't know if I'd be able to handle it. I don't know if I could contain my anger at those people that treat you this way. I'm not going to lie to you. I feel that way. He goes, that's all the more reason why you should come. And do you want to know something, Joe? My heart has been softened. You know what I mean? Because like I said, you could try to be a counter-revolutionary and fight in the street. That's going to get you nowhere. My heart has changed. All those times in front of abortion clinics or this particular prayer rally over the weekend, God has softened my heart. He really has. I really feel genuine. I don't want to call it pity. That almost sounds like judgment.
No, it's empathy.
Yes, I feel an empathy. And by the way, Jesse made a good point. How many people inside that satanic convention are baptized Catholics? Or baptized in a church that the Catholic Church recognizes the baptism of that particular Protestant church? How many people in there actually have that indelible mark on their soul? Joe, they're lost people. They're lost. Maybe not Lucian Greaves, even though he's a lost soul. He's a bit more deliberate, and he really needs prayers, okay? But I'm talking about the rank and file that were there. We might have actually, in our prayers, contributed to a number of conversions. We won't know. We won't know until we're in heaven, God willing, okay? But the bottom line is, the more I see things like that, particularly the more you participate in things like that, the more we do the Frontline with Joe and Joe on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online, I realize, no, God has worked on me in that way to say it's not about anger. It's not about political battles. It's about praying for conversion. And that's exactly what happened there. And it was very, Joe, I got to say, it was very, very powerful. Very
Jesse,
powerful.
listen, Jesse's great. He really is. And it was a good event. Yeah. And I look at Jesse, to be truthful with you, is he's living out his vocation as a lay Catholic. I was saying this to Joe when we were talking about this off, the air, and I just said that's what we all should be doing in our own little way. We all could do this. Like I'm telling you, like do you use like what Joe and I did and do the first Saturdays? It takes 20 minutes. Usually about 10 to 20 guys show up. And to be honest, over the year, we became friends. It's like a small little fraternity. It's a group of different churches. Guys show up. Some don't make it 1 week. Some make it the next week, the next month. You pray. It's a public witness. We have our banner. We go home. That's it. Go back to your family. The end. Sometimes I take one of my kids with me. I help my wife out. Take one of my kids. That's it. And that's all we could do. Because again, like we're only a small link in the chain. But here's the thing. If the links aren't connected, the chain doesn't work. And there's too much craziness. I'll be honest with you. It's really embarrassing. Like if I wasn't a Catholic, I'll be truthful with you. If I wasn't a Catholic, say I was just like, I don't know, I'm a Methodist in somewhere in Texas or something, and I see the bickering, I'll be honest with you. I'd be like, just look at these Catholics. It's embarrassing.
Right.
It's embarrassing. I'll be honest with you. To use like the term from Jesse and Terry and Jesse's show, we're worrying about the corn. We're watering the corn. The house is on fire.
Right.
We're in the backyard. We're watering the corn. The house is burning.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's sad. It really
It
is. And I'll be
It is.
truthful with you. If I was like I'll just pick another place. If I was in Arkansas and I was a Baptist and I saw this bickering, I'd be like, look at this nonsense.
Right.
They can't even get along amongst themselves.
No,
We're in our own way, in plain English. It's sad.
well, and thank God there's people like Mike Church out there, Jesse Romero, in other words, that don't split off factions, this and that. I don't want to be known as anything other than Catholic, not
That's it.
conservative Catholic, not trad Catholic, not this Catholic. I just want people to get our church, our people to get back on the same page. What are you? I'm Catholic. I don't need any further explanation.
And you know,
That's
and listen,
the bottom
and
line.
all people, and I mean, we're kind of going in a different direction, but that's okay. I mean, like, you're never going to be 100% with everybody. Like, and you know, we all make mistakes. I make mistakes. A good thing to do is say a prayer for people. When you see them, like sometimes you see something and it's really off. Someone said this to me when I'll be honest with you. I'll tell you a little short story. One time I was in an adoration chapel, my old parish that I grew up in, which I left because I really didn't care for some of the nonsense that was going on there. They had adoration on the parish feast day. The church was named after Our Lady. No lie. A dude was dancing like David, dancing like from Old Testament David in front of the Blessed Sacrament. I was like, what is going on here? Like, I was like in the back, just like, what is going on in this church?
Right.
And someone said to me, I was telling someone about it, and what they said to me was, it was a holy person. They said, just pray to Our Lady of Sorrows. When you see stuff like that, think about the Blessed Mother. I know Mike Church, if he hears this, he'll probably crack up because he's probably like, here's Joe going to the Blessed Mother again, but I'm going to do it, Mike.
Not disrespect the Blessed Mother.
But I'm going to do it. Just pray to Our Lady of Sorrows. Think about how perfect she is. And she sees me like a bumbling fool, in plain English, trying his best at, to put it, the best way I can. And she's probably just like, oh, Joe. So many times in my 51 years of life. That's what we have to say sometimes. Like,
Right.
you just have to give it to Our Lady of Sorrows. And to be truthful with you, that's where she'll start chirping in people's ears and chirping in their hearts. And hopefully there's a change, because I'll say it again. All we can control is ourselves. I can't make the bishops do things. I can't make priests do things. What I got to do is make me do things.
Right.
I got to get my act together. And I'll tell you what, if you really do, you will see how people will gravitate around you. You will see how your effect will have a ripple effect in your little community, in your little world. That's how you change the culture.
And then it goes out, from there. And I'll tell you right now, on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Joe, one of the changes that we need, Jesse pointed this out over the weekend. We need. He actually said. I think he said we need an Our Lady of Guadalupe moment. One of the changes that we need, and this is where we're going to start our conversation. We bend the knee to the wrong things, and the change that needs to take place is that we bend. Our Lady will tell us who exactly we need to bend our knee to, because look, the enemy has taken the things that there's nothing wrong with. There's nothing wrong, Joe Resinello, with the Super Bowl. Nothing wrong with it whatsoever. It's a football game, okay? Just like the NBA championships, just like the World Series, just like the Stanley Cup, okay? It's an athletic event. There's value there, culturally speaking. We learn things from sports like discipline, hard work, okay? Competition, okay? And all these different things. And they've taken that away from us to the point where now we bend our knee rather than enjoying the Super Bowl, knowing that we only bend our knee to Jesus Christ. It's now to the Super Bowl, we bend our knee and other things, but it happens to be, this has been Super Bowl weekend. So we're going to talk about how we bend our knee in this pagan ritual that we go through every year. And they basically taken something that's good and as the evil one will do, perverted it. The change has to be, and I'm going to hand it over to you, stop bending your knee to a lot of these different things that you bend your knee to and start bending your knee to Jesus. So I'm going to hand it over to you.
Well, Eric Sammons, who is a friend of our show, we've interviewed Eric, wrote a great article in Crisis Magazine called "America's High Holy Day is basically is Super Bowl Sunday." These are some of the excerpts. By the way, Eric is from the Cincinnati area, and as we all know, the Bengals are in the game. This is what Mr. Sammons had to say. Just a little excerpt. He said, "Super Bowl Sunday is the highest holy day of our land. As a native of Cincinnati, whose father had season tickets to Cincinnati Bengal games in the 80s, we've been very much attuned to having basically a bad team, bad season, hometown constantly, but they still go. It's like the Cleveland Browns. People,
It's like the
they
Jets
lose,
fans.
like the Jets, they still go. Basically what he's saying is, when the Bengals got into the Super Bowl, he said, I saw many images of grown men weeping, not over their sins, but because some guys wearing their favorite uniform won a game. Most religious leaders would do anything to get followers to be that dedicated. For many people, football has become a way of life and identity in which one finds comfort and fulfillment. He's very right on that. I mean, clearly this is the sporting event in America, Super Bowl Sunday. It's almost like equivalent to Thanksgiving, like in many respects. I mean, the bars are packed from noon until the end of the game. I mean, delis do a tremendous business.
Pizzerias.
Kill it.
Right.
But I mean, he's right. I mean, my takeaway, I used to go to the games, Jet games in my 20s. One of the takeaways that I have from it, especially around the New York area, it's very expensive. Football in the New York area, Jet and Giant games, is a white collar event. It used to be different. That
be a
changed.
blue collar event.
It costs $40 to park your tickets. I mean, to park your car.
Right.
$40. I mean, it used to be, when I used to go in my 20s, it was $5 to park your car. So, I mean, it is an expensive day. And I used to go with this one guy who, to be honest with you, he was a Teamster too. This guy, Billy, who I knew from church. He used to throw me Giant tickets, and I used to go with them. Billy passed, may the Lord have his soul rest in peace. He was a good guy. Anyway, you see a lot of guys in there. They can't afford those tickets.
No.
They're dropping $300 in a day. A lot of these guys, they work for PSC&G, which is our local, like they can't afford the games.
Joe,
they're dropping.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. Okay. If you took your 3 sons to a Jets game,
spend $1,000,
and it's easy, because if you don't want to have crappy tickets all the way up in the nosebleeds, okay, number one, the 4 of you, the tickets alone are going to be probably $600, $500-600. You buy yourself a beer or two for yourself and a hot dog, and get the kids some ice cream and some hot dogs, you're at $1,000 like that. That's a working man's game. That's for they built that stadium for the working man. So that's one of the lies about the NFL. It was a blue collar sport. It came up in the middle part of the last century, okay? Particularly with the rise of schools like Notre Dame and everything else. A lot of people considered it a fairly Catholic sport. There was a lot of Vince Lombardi comes to mind, okay? But leaving that aside, it is an American sport, but it was always blue collar. When you look at people like teams like the Cincinnati Bengals, the Browns, the Lions, the Bears, okay, the Steelers, these are blue collar.
Well, at least Chicago, people have money. A lot of money in Chicago.
Right.
Chicago, but I mean, when you look at Cleveland, I mean, or like, let's just use that as an example. I mean, it's not a bastion of economic, right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it used to be. But the point is, all those Rust Belt towns, okay, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, all right, Detroit, that's where football originated, okay? No, and this is what it's become. So the first part of this that's a lot of nonsense is that, no, Mr. Goodell, you're not there so that blue collar guys who are driving trucks could take their kids to the game. And if they do take their kids to the game, they basically have to blow a whole week's paycheck on that game. That's number one. The other thing that I took away, and you've already quoted it from Eric Salmon's article on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. This is what struck me, Joe. This is why I decided I wanted to talk to you about this. I saw many images of grown men weeping, not over their sins. And that one hit me in the gut, because I'm not going to lie to you, Joe. I remember one birthday, probably close to 20 years ago. Every single gift I got was green and white. Everything I got was New York Jets. I got a New York Jets this, a New York Jets that. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because I don't judge people for watching the Super Bowl I love football. I will never lie about that. I love the New York Jets. They disappointed us for over 50 years, but I love the New York Jets. Okay. But the problem is I let football become my identity. I was that guy crying, not over his sins, but over the fact that the Jets stink, okay? Or they barely make the playoffs, or this or that. But I was that guy. No, so I get it, and I could still enjoy a football game, okay? Not lately because of all the wokeness. I mean, let's be real about that, okay? But it really does come down to that, is we as a culture need to convince our brothers and sisters out there, you got to keep football at a distance. You don't cry because your team didn't make the playoffs. You cry because maybe you're not living a holy life.
Well, that's
or you
it's a
cry over your
distraction.
sins.
Someone
But if
said
you
that in the
make
chat.
football, no, you're right, Joe. But if you make football your identity, I mean, think of it this way, Joe. Eric Salmon's in the article also notes a lot of other things, okay, that we make that our identity. We find what's supposed to be, and I want to hand it over to you for your comments. We find the best elements of religion, we take away from religion, and we find it in other things, okay? And when you do that, you're just really, you're making a sad, bad mistake, because none of these things could ever replace real religion. The Catholic religion, community, all right, comes to mind. All right, the different things that we value about being Catholic is that we're part of a community. Well, take the New York Jets. Somebody who identifies, they find their identity in their allegiance to the New York Jets, no longer finds their identity with, let's say in this case of New Jersey, probably the Catholic Church. And that's one of the problems in our culture, is that we're looking in the wrong places. What say you?
Well, it's just like anything. People find their identity in politics. People find their identity in football. I mean, I think for the last stat that I read, 9% of Catholics go to church. 9 go to church on Sunday out of the whole, like, regular attending, mass. I mean, that's where you're supposed to go. It's a mortal sin if you don't go. I mean,
Right.
Not for nothing. I didn't make that up. That's not my words. So, I mean, like, people don't go. I mean, look at even sporting events with kids. All the different events. My kid, we're going to sign Frankie up for flag football. Give it a shot. He's 6. It's on Sunday. All
Right.
day from 12 to 4. I mean, we could still get to mass, but my point is, it makes it sometimes very hard for a family to, Sunday is the day to go to church, but
Right.
that's another story. I mean, for another day. But look at football in terms of how they slap the face of Americans with all their woke. I haven't watched, just for the record.
Please get into that, Joe. Please get in. Please keep going.
I haven't watched a football game in 3 years. And I like football too. I used to go every single Sunday. I used to go to the Jet games all through my 20s. So all my friends from high school.
Joe, when I first met you, we would watch Jet games.
Absolutely.
I know you now for 9 years. When we first met, we'd watch Jet games.
I haven't watched a game in 3 years. And for this reason, and this is where Americans don't get it. They have a short memory. Football slapped your face. The American people, the fan, it's the perfect analogy of what's going on in America. The elites, the owners, and the administration, the NFL administration, and then the fans. Do you actually think that Roger Goodell will identify with Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello. He makes $40 million a year. He probably lives in Darien, Connecticut, in a mansion you can get lost in. Like if you screamed at the top of your lungs in a section of his house and he was in another section of it, he wouldn't hear you, probably. Do you think he identifies with the people that he's on a completely different plane? Yet, after he smacks the face of all the servicemen that come to play the national anthem, all the nonsense with the kneeling going on, and then we just give him money, hand over fist.
Just go like this. We
Take
hand it
it,
over.
take it, take it. And then,
Remember
you know,
what
something, and then we complain, Joe. I don't want to
Right.
hear it.
Right, because listen, the button should have been pulled on Roger Goodell. Okay, as you're joining us here at the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello. We're on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. The button should have been pushed on him when he did not allow the Dallas Cowboys to wear the DPD, the Dallas Police Department insignia on their cleats in honor of those cops that were shot in Dallas. But yet he lets these guys put all sorts of woke nonsense on their uniform, on their cleats, on their helmets, in the end zone. Okay. And then nobody calls him out. Like Jerry Jones. Like what does Goodell have over Jerry Jones? Jerry Jones didn't get him on the phone and say, excuse me, Commissioner, what my boys do, my boys do. If they want to honor the Dallas Police Department. But now, do any of these so-called owners, do they call him out and say, I don't want political and cultural slogans in my end zone. My guys are not wearing that on their uniform. Or how about this? I own the team, Mr. Goodell, Commissioner Goodell. I'll tell them what they can and cannot put on their uniform. I'll tell them whether or not they can or cannot kneel on the sideline. And if they want to leave, they can leave.
Do you remember Jerry Jones?
Team, they could go to another team.
It's funny you bring him up because he actually pushed back in the beginning of it. And then it's like he basically had to drink the Kool-Aid. He came out with the whole team. And do you remember that? I saw that.
Yeah.
He kneels with all of them. And I just say to myself, wow, I am not contributing 1 second of my time to that nonsense. You know, it's funny. Frank Moore, who's a friend of our show, we're doing a show on President's Day with Frank. Great guy. Wrote a book on American exceptionalism. He sent out an email about the Super Bowl, how he's protesting it. Frank's a fire department vet. I mean, you can't get more of like a guy's guy than Frank. He's a great guy, to be honest with you. And he sent it out, and I sent an email back. I said, Frank, I haven't watched a game in 3 years. He sent an email back to me. You know what he said? He said, I sent this email, Joe, to 55 guys. You're the only person that sent an email back. I'm telling you, this just goes to, I'm not tooting my own horn, but what I'm saying is they just friggin' bend right over. They bend right over. This country stuck it to the American people like nobody's business the last 2 years. I have never in my life seen power, raw power, exercised the way it has in the last 2 years in my adult life. And you know something? We just roll over once again. It's pathetic.
No,
it's pathetic.
You're absolutely right. Let's talk more about the religious aspect of this new pagan idolatry. And again, I mean, as Salmons points out, Joe, he's basically saying it's not the only thing. You're talking about TV shows, other sports, hobbies, political movements, and this is where we have a beef with conservatives. Okay, they make almost an idol out of the conservative movement, as though it's not supposed to be questioned or whatever the case might be. So we do it all the time. But I like, and this is important to impart to our audience on the Crusade Channel, I like the way Eric Salmons put it. He said, contrast that with the community found rooting for a particular football team. He says, members find purpose in life by attaching themselves to the success of the team. They often, now here's the part, Joe, that makes me a little upset. Okay, you're talking about spending $1,000 to take you and your 3 sons to a Jets game if you decided to do that. Okay, but you won't do it for the church. $1,000 is way too much for the church. An hour of your time on Sunday is way too much time. So you go to church on Christmas and Easter, okay? But he says they often make significant sacrifices in time and money to participate and become lifelong friends with others in the community. So let's keep it with the Jets. That means you're just friends with other Jets fans, okay? Fans often feel they have a direct role in the success or failure of the team. They have passionate debates about which players are best and why, because they don't have true religion in their lives. Being part of this community gives them a replacement that feels like the real thing. And Joe and I are here to tell you there is no replacement. You're looking in the wrong place. That's why we're losing not just the spiritual battle, but the culture war and the political battles, because we're all finding this identity that we're talking about in the wrong place. Football and every one of these other things, Joe Rossinello, has its place, okay? It's there. We can learn something from it. We could just be entertained by it, but it has its place. But now, I mean, look, I'm going to hand it over to you. Zuckerberg said a few years ago, Facebook, social media, I think he said Facebook in particular, in many ways could take the place of traditional religion. Unfortunately, Joe, for many people, he's right.
True. But you're right. I mean, clearly, I mean, it's just another distraction. There's a million of them out there. And it's funny that you say that. I was just saying this to my wife. Dude, the devil is laying to waste the world. Like from the intelligent to the simple. You look at what's going on. The devil is laying to waste the world. I actually said a prayer, because to be truthful with you, a friend of mine, his daughter died recently, 23-year-old girl. I was very, very upset about it. And it made me just think about all the craziness going on. And I just said to myself, good Lord, what is God has to because we're not seeing it because we don't want to. And to your point, football is just another distraction. But let's talk about what football is also bringing lately. The halftime shows. It begins with Janet Jackson, where the what's his face rips off her shirt.
Timberlake.
Okay. This is a prime time television event. Families all over America are watching. You have that. Now, and this is what Bill Donahue talks about in an article, you have rappers who drop the N-word left and right. I mean, this is the hypocrisy of the NFL. They're supposedly so pro anti-racism, which, by the way, we are too, which, by the way, everyone should be. Yet you hear these derogatory terms. These are people, sadly, that sing about horrible, horrible behaviors, the treatment of women, all the things the woke people are against, and they're handing them over 7 digits to basically spew their crap. Snoop, I actually get a kick out of him, to be honest with you. He makes me laugh, to be truthful with you. With that said, the man is high 24/7, dude.
24/7.
High and visibly high. Trust me, I'm not going to say I haven't. For 10 years of my life, I smoked a lot of weed. I know what high is. Trust me when I tell you. I could still roll a pretty badass joint, just so you know. But I will. I don't smoke anymore. But if need be, I could roll a pretty badass joint. Anyway,
no, I don't know, but I got to tell you, I don't know if they told you. Nowadays, they don't roll joints anymore. Everything is fake now. You wouldn't have to roll a joint.
But my point is, I don't do that. I put that down a long, long time ago. But I know what it smells like. I know what it looks like. And that dude is high when he does commercials for he's high. It's visible and no one cares. And again, this is the culture.
Right.
The culture is rancid. Right. It's rancid. And I'll tell you this, John Adams said it perfectly. I've talked about this on many of our shows, Joe. The country only works. The republic only works when you have a virtuous people, and we don't. And
Right.
that's why there is going to be no political Messiah. Don't expect him or her. It's not coming. It's not coming. It's temporary.
Right.
The culture is rancid. And until we correct that, the politics will be rancid. If it's a Republican or a Democrat, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. But it's like you said, because, and that's another problem with this country is that we mentioned it earlier on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. That's another problem, is that we make idols out of all these things. So there are many Republicans and self-identified conservatives, okay? They bend the knee to that party. They bend the knee to that movement. Knows I don't say this in a judgmental way. I was guilty of it for a good portion of my life. I identified as conservative rather than Catholic, so that I wouldn't question anything. But then when the Holy Spirit opens your eyes through grace, okay, then you start to question those things. You say, well, I think I'm going about this the wrong way. No, conservatives are wrong too. But again, they find some sort of political salvation, they think, in Sean Hannity, in politicians like Ted Cruz. Both gentlemen I like. I have nothing against, but they are off also, because their identity is not in Christ. They claim to be men of faith, and I am not going to sit here and doubt or question their sincere love of Jesus. I'm not judging them in that way. But you would think in your mind that they're as attached to the political movement that they identify with as many of these people we're talking about identify with sports or TV shows or things like that. They would deny that they're bending the knee, but Joe Resinello, let's be clear, they are bending the knee, at least to a degree.
Well, Joe, again, I mean, a lot of those dudes like their power. I mean, like to be truthful with you, these guys, do they really serve the people? I mean, there is such a distinction, and it's growing. It's just growing and growing. The common man is disappearing in the eyes of everything, the thoughts that are communicated. There is no relationship. Ultimately, there is going to be some form of conflict. I'm not saying physical conflict, but like the clash. We're seeing a little bit of that in Canada right now, like what's going on with the truckers. I mean, you see basically the messaging. I mean, Trudeau clearly doesn't get it. I mean, like in terms of like the average man, what he or she is going through in Canada as a result of these mandates. It's the same thing what's going on in America. I mean, all of their narratives have blown up. All
Right.
of them. They say this, it changes. This. They say that, this. Meanwhile, people are getting crushed
Right.
financially. I can't tell you. I just drove past Houlihan's on 17. It's boarded up. That used to be a thriving restaurant right near the Teterboro Airport, right in the shadows of New York City. People get boarded up. I mean,
Right.
people have gotten crushed. The poor lost a year of school in public schools across America. They're behind the eight ball as it is. These are the people they're selling to America that they're for, yet they crush them.
You know how
And
they
yet
tell them?
and Roger Goodell continues and he marches on. Know why? Because he makes $40 million a year.
And
His
he
kids
doesn't care.
and his kids are perfectly fine. And you know something? And we keep handing him over friggin' Benjamins, dude. The average guy, that's the sick part about
Right.
it.
No, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. Um, that is one of the that's part of the problem. Like you said, it's like we continue, but we've been talking about this on our show now for quite some time. In fact, from the beginning, both before we met my church and the Crusade Channel, and ever since we've been on the Crusade Channel, is that we can only blame ourselves. I will say this though, we see pockets. I think the Rosary rally over the weekend, where most of the people might have said, well, they're a bunch of lunatics. They call themselves Satanists. They're in the hotel. They're never going to consecrate, if they possibly could. They're never going to consecrate Scottsdale to Satan, I don't have to worry about it. I don't need to spend my time out in the heat and praying the rosary. That's why the devil wins. That is the lukewarmness that Christ talked about. Okay. I couldn't tell you, Joe Resinello, what the fruit of being out there was. I don't know. I haven't seen it yet, but I know there will be. Okay. Because I know that God was listening to everything that we were, all our prayers. Okay. But the point is, that's why, because of Jesse Romero and others, okay, particularly Jesse and the group that was there, that's why in this particular case, the other side's not going to win. But why? Because we're not lukewarm. And you know where else you see pockets of it? Okay. You see pockets of it on a local level. I'm going to go back to, and we've gone back to several times, Virginia, the recent elections in Virginia. Okay. Where people say, now you're coming after my kids. Well, now I'm going to target you politically. Now, hopefully, this is not another political solution to a deeper problem. And hopefully, Glenn Youngkin and the lieutenant governor and the attorney general are going to turn Virginia around, okay, and get rid of the wokeness and the Governor Ralph Northam syndrome that they've been suffering for a few years, okay, and get it back on track. But you see people standing up. You see parents standing up and not just being lukewarm and saying, well, I can't do anything about the school board. Why should I go down there and say anything? Well, there's this little invention called social media. And if you do something, if you do open your mouth, guess what? You could go viral. You could be an inspiration to someone. You could be an inspiration to another mom whose little son is being taught that he could be a girl. And you go to the school and you voice your concerns. You want to talk about being in a community? That's a community you should be involved with. Joe Resinello, even if, let's say, for argument's sake, you're not a completely religious person. How about at least in that way? Rather than become a community of a bunch of crying Jets fans or Cleveland Browns fans, how about become a community of parents that fights the culture war on that level? There's so many things. I mean, ultimately, we know you need to be with Christ. Christ is the head of the community that you need to be involved with. But it's like, but even something like that is a worthy cause when it comes to defending your children. But a lot of people won't even do that. But I bring it up to say, at least there's hope. I think we've seen a lot of it. The media won't report on it. The truckers convoy. You brought up the Canadian truckers. That's, to me, a tremendous sign of hope. These are blue-collar people, Joe. These are blue-collar people. They can't afford to not have money, to not be able to put food on the table. That's a powerful statement. 50,000 truckers, 2.5 million people supporting them in Canada, driving across Canada in the wintertime to go and make a statement. And you know what Trudeau said about them? Oh, this is just a bunch of a small group of people waving swastikas. That's what that idiot had to say, which is completely
he's completely clueless. I'll be truthful with you. I mean, you talk about a guy that's out of touch. It's actually dangerous because this is not a small thing, to be honest with you. And I say that objectively. He's just clueless. But so many of them are clueless, Joe, because they're behind their invisible walls. They live in their communities. You don't have to have real walls. The walls are taxes. They keep you out. They're not interested in you. And frankly, they don't care. They don't care. And we'll get back to the Super Bowl, yet we fork over our money.
Right.
We still go to Disneyland and drop $12,000. Most of the people in Disneyland, Joe, are putting that trip on their credit card, and that trip doesn't cost $12,000, it costs $18,000 because they're going to pay it off in the next 18 months. They can't afford. You see him on Facebook. You see some guy bringing his kids to Disneyland, dropping money he doesn't have. This is the American way.
Yeah.
We were talking within the church. We're our own worst enemy. Abraham Lincoln said that. We'll defeat ourselves, and we're watching it. We said this. I got to give credit to my wife because she's the one. We're Fat Elvis. America has turned into fat. That's
Fat
Sabrina.
Elvis.
We're Fat Elvis, dude. We're Elvis in Vegas, sweating, drinking drinks, having his shirt buttoned down to his navel, and having friggin' glittery glasses on the size of his whole entire head. That's what America has turned into. We, instead of like a lean and mean nation of like immigrants who came here and put their nose to the grindstone and fought in wars and sacrificed and built the greatest nation arguably ever, we're now Fat Elvis. America is a mockery of what it was. It's a shadow of what it was, because it goes back to what Adam said. It doesn't work if the people aren't virtuous.
Right.
And we're not.
Right.
Both the Republicans and the Democrats.
Well,
we're
this is
not a virtuous people.
And this is one of the things, Joe, that you know that we made the point, and we're going to continue to make the point, because those same people, many of whom are conservative. Okay, I'd like to break it to everybody out there. Just because you're politically and culturally conservative doesn't make you a wonderful person. You need to actually act that way in your life, meaning spend time with your kids rather than making money. All right, love your wife. All right, serve your family, serve God. Okay. We have so much prosperity. What does it really cost? We mentioned earlier, same father who has 3 kids will go spend a G note at the game, won't put $5 in the basket at church. That's even if he does go to church, because it might conflict with the game. But the same people, Joe Resinello, the same people will think it's all going to be fine in 2022 when Nancy Pelosi is no longer the Speaker of the House. It's all going to be great in 2024 when Donald Trump gets elected president again. Man, if you think that way, I want to see both those things happen. I'm be quite frank with you. I'm not sure if I want Trump to be president, but you know what I mean, okay? I want to see both those things happen. You think that I think that that's going to save our nation? Do you really? Do you think that that's America's problem, is that that Nancy Pelosi's Speaker of the House and Donald Trump's not president? Okay? If that's the way you think, then you're as misguided and lost as the left. You're as misguided and lost as those people in the satanic convention. You're as misguided and lost as the father who can't afford it, spending $1,000 to bring his kid to the Super Bowl or any random game. Doesn't have to be the Super Bowl. Super Bowl probably cost you $2,000, if not more. Okay. Or spend the 12 G's to take your kid to Disney World. Okay. You're in the same boat. You're just as lost. Can I tell you a quick thing, Joe Resinello?
Sure, please.
Again, I'm not patting myself on the back. Our foster son came home from school, and they're organizing a trip to Disneyland, whichever one is in California. I forgot which is which. Okay. Whichever one's in California. I said, "You're not going." You know what? He looked at me and he goes, "Papa, if you don't want me to go, I'm not going to go." I said, "I don't want you to go. I'll tell you about it later." See, I'm not going to let him go to Disneyland. I'm not. I don't care if they gave him, Joe, I don't care if they gave him the trip for free. How's that? You know what I did with him last week? I brought him to the go-kart track. That's what they have in Arizona, Joe. They have horseback trails, go-karts, the indoor skydiving. Okay. I'll do that any day of the week. Costs about $25-$30. Okay. Not 12 G's. All right. And he can have his fun like that. I'll bring him to the batting cage. Okay. I'll get him involved in sports at school. There's no reason, let's say if you have a kid, to be forking over in the name of wanting to provide your son, in this case, let's say an entertainment venue. There's no reason to take that money and put it in these people's pockets. That's just the bottom line.
Well,
Joe
that's just
Resinello, we have about 3 minutes. I'm going to give you the final word.
Well, I want to bring up end on a positive note. This is something out of Life News. Tanisha Copeland, who is the mother of Marquise Copeland, who's in the Super Bowl, was a pregnant teenager, basically. And she endured a lot from her family and friends. In fact, they wanted her to have an abortion. This is what the article said in LifeSite. It put her in a state of clinical depression, but she delivered Marquise, who grew up to be a professional football player. He played at the University of Cincinnati. He was the first to start as a true freshman for over a course of 15 years. And now he's number 93 in the Super Bowl today. Why do I bring this up? Because the world is full of shining examples like Marquise Copeland, people who have been written off as worthless with no potential. They are living testimonies, some more high profile than others, that God has a special plan for each and every child conceived, regardless of the circumstances. I'll tell you a personal story on that. I could remember many years ago, I was backpacking through Southeast Asia, and I was in Cambodia, and I went to visit an orphanage. It was near Christmas, and me and this couple from Wales brought some stuff to the orphanage, and I have never seen an explosion of joy. There were kids in that orphanage, Joe. They didn't have clothes on their back. It was like one of those movies, naked 4-year-olds wandering around like in a schoolyard. Poor, poor. And I said to myself, there are no orphanages in America. When's the last time you ever heard of an orphanage? Know why? Because all those kids would be aborted.
That's right.
Babe Ruth came from an orphanage. He's the greatest baseball player who ever lived. How many Babe Ruths have been killed in America? How many Marquise Copelands wouldn't exist? How many children could have done amazing things that don't exist? 63 million. That was the number I've heard. Gone in America. We are guilty of that, my friends.
Right.
As people, every time we vote for that. What a shame. What a shame. And I'll tell you what, that's something to think about. That gentleman, for all intents and purposes, shouldn't be alive. He's in the Super Bowl. God bless his mother.
I was going to say, God bless his mother. I will say this, Joe Resinello. These are important conversations to have. That's why we're going to express our gratitude for all of those joining us on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. Mike Church in particular. We love him. He loves us. We love being on the same team, okay? Sharing the same message out there and fighting the real battles that we need to fight, okay? And it starts with ourselves. As you said, none of us are perfect. We're all striving. We're slogging our way through, okay? And with the grace of God, we're going to get through to the other side. And maybe we could save our beloved country, because we love America, Joe and I. We hate what it's become, but we love our country and we want it back. We want it back. And we're just going to end real quick with a line from Eric Sammons, and then we're going to sign off, okay? Sammons ends with, quote, "I want the Bengals to win this Sunday, but more importantly, I want the reign of Christ the King to be victorious in the world." Close quote. No better place to end. We want to thank you all for joining us on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Thank you again to Mike Church, Rick Barrett, and the entire lineup down on the Crusade Channel. Remember, Joe and I are on the radio, Veritas Catholic Network up in Connecticut. You can download the app and you can hear all of our interview shows, which we think you'll thoroughly enjoy. And if you like Joe and I and you want to support us, on Sunday nights at 8 o'clock, we go live on our social media, and you can see all of our social media content either by going on YouTube at the Frontline TV, or more importantly, where we'd really like for you to go and maybe subscribe to our channel is thefrontlinetv.com, thefrontlinetv.com. Remember, if we could give money to HBO and Netflix and the rest of that nonsense, or put money in Roger Goodell's pocket, we could take $5 or $10 a month and give it to our favorite, let's say, people out there who are doing the best job they can at spreading the truth. And remember, until the next time, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk to you soon.